If you're looking for what's left of Zimmer Twins, I would recommend checking out zimmertwins.co.uk. I'll have that linked in the description. There's also a few other areas where you can find some former Zimmer Twins users, so I'll go ahead and post some links to those as well. Now on with the video. In this video, I want to explain what Zimmer Twins was, both for those who used the site and those who didn't. I'll talk about my experience with the site, review brand elements, and share former users' experiences. Now I wanted to make this video at the end of the year, but just over a week ago I got the news that Zimmer Twins was shutting down. I almost missed the news, but thankfully my brother was in a Zimmer Twins fan Discord server. This video has a couple purposes. The first is to explain what Zimmer Twins was, as it is now down, also what happened to it and what became of the community. Now, Zimmer Twins means a lot to me. I made over 70 videos over the course of 10 years on that website. That's over an hour of watch time and countless hours of creation, games, and consumption, so the brand is very important to me. In addition to this, I'm working on an archive of my Zimmer Twins profile as I screen recorded all of my videos, so I'll have the link to the YouTube channel for that. I also plan to upload my Zimmer Twins videos to the zimmertwins.co.uk website under my own profile, so I'll post a link in the description when I do that. When Zimmer Twins launched in 2005, it was a practically unparalleled concept. Essentially, you were putting together little animated stories, sort of like a comic book. Zimmer Twins was about creative, efficient, and resourceful storytelling. You had to be creative to make good stories. You had to be efficient to condense your story to a minute. While series were an option, most viewers won't stick past 3 parts, and you had to be resourceful to escape the limits of predetermined finite actions. You would use preset actions, locations, characters, props, and intros in whatever combination you saw fit. In addition to this, you could add your own dialogue through text bubbles. The result was cartoons about a minute in length that were fairly basic but could tell great stories if you knew what you were doing. In addition, making them was fairly easy. Originally, submissions could be selected to be aired on television. The television versions would have the talk bubbles removed and replaced with actual voice acting, and sometimes tweaks would be made to the visuals and animation to better match the story. Needless to say, the possibility for any kid to make a cartoon on television was and still is astonishing. The show, and I would say the majority of videos made on Zimmer Twins, had a similar formula. The main characters are Edgar, Eva, and 13. Edgar and Eva are twins, and 13 is their cat. The thing that really makes them stand out is they have psychic powers, which they often use to get into or out of trouble. Sometimes people would create stories with big villains for a conflict, or sometimes it would just be something small. I'd say overall a lot of the movies had sort of a sitcom type feel. Basically, most people wanted their movies to be funny, so often conflicts would be over silly things. But I'll talk a little bit more about the site content in a minute. Now, when you were making movies on Zimmer Twins, essentially you had menus of clips, and when you click on a clip, that clip often had things you could configure, such as the background, who was talking, or if it was an action, who was doing said action, who was with them while they're doing that, what they're holding. There's also transitional screens, and in addition to the 3 main characters, Edgar, Eva, and 13, there's also a handful of sort of side characters, which while they can't do anything except speak, they can make the Zimmer Twins world feel less lonely. These side characters are Madam Psycho, the Wizard, the Delivery Boy, and the Alien. In addition, there are also some character reaction clips you can use, but all the clips fall under talking, action, reaction, and effect and transition. You could use context clues in the title, description, or dialogue to imply elements of a story in order to save precious time. You could use these context clues or suggestions to make one action become another, and if all else failed, you could use text narrations. No matter what I say about it, I could never really do justice to the great potential of the Zimmer Twins movie maker. The TV show, along with its stage of the website, lasted from about 2005 to 2008. And I believe that during this time, making a public movie could be done completely for free. Eventually, though, the site was moved to a new domain with some changes. One feature that the site had was starters. Essentially, starters were little animated intros of a story with very little context so that the users could make their own endings to said stories. There were a handful of clips and starters that didn't make it to the new website, While some of them were eventually added in, some remained exclusive to the older website. Besides that, there were some completely new things added to this new site. This stage of the site was surprisingly successful without the show. But by this stage, Zimmer Twins was funded by $5 a month subscriptions. You could use the site for free, but your videos wouldn't be public unless you paid the $5 a month. Any movie you made while having a public membership would stay public, but if you made a movie without VIP, you would have to renew your VIP for that movie to become public. In addition, the free version was missing some clips. And if you didn't have a subscription, you had to choose between preset comments, whereas with VIP, you could comment whatever you wanted. And I always kind of thought that Zimmer Twins could be a great way to teach languages, just because you pick actions and you can clearly tell what the actions are, and if the word wasn't in your language, you could still tell what the word meant by looking at the action. And apparently Zimmer Twins at school could be used to help teach English as a second language. Zimmer Twins had a movie hierarchy with hand-picked must-sees chosen by the moderators at the top, then crowd pleasers, basically what users liked based on review scores and number of reviews, and finally there's now showing. With no quality control, the newest movies are first. This is where you'd browse and rate most of the time. In addition to this, you can save your favorite movies in a favorites playlist or search for them by name. Now, I want to talk about some Zimmer Twins content, and I'll get to site content here in a little bit, but initially there was the show, and I'd like to talk about that. So there were 2 or 3 versions of the show. There was maybe an American and a Canadian one, or maybe they were the same, I'm not really sure. The only reason I'm not sure is because I've noticed 2 different sets of actors and actresses for some of them. There's also the Australian version, which obviously I wouldn't confuse with those. So I'm not sure if it was just recasts or if there was a Canadian and an American voiced version, which that wouldn't make much sense to me because Canadian accents tend to be pretty subtle, and I didn't really notice them that much in the ones where I did notice them. As far as the non-Australian version, I was only able to track down probably less than 20 episodes, which really is a shame because I like it a lot more than the Australian dub. From what I saw, it was actually pretty solid. I mean, some of the videos were pretty random. I mean, they must have been made, some of them, by pretty little kids. But regardless, I was surprised by the genuine sense of humor that most of them had. I was honestly expecting them to not be as good as they were, but I'd say, honestly, they did a good job of picking good Zimmer Twins movies to put on the show. Now, my main gripes against the Australian version are mainly in their choice of casting, and I honestly think a lot of the voice acting isn't very solid in that version. It has nothing to do with the Australian accents, that doesn't bother me whatsoever. It's more that, number one, Edgar doesn't sound like a little kid. I mean, he sounds like he's at least 15 or something. And then 13 and Edgar sound pretty similar, except 13 just sounds a lot more silly. Which, while 13 is kind of a silly character, I wouldn't say he needs that silly of a voice. It's honestly kind of cringeworthy to listen to. I'll just show a clip that shows basically all of my complaints with the Australian dub.
13, come here.
I'm not really sure if the Australian version was its own dub or if it just had its own episodes specific to Australia. And I will say, if they were selected from Australia, it wasn't the videos themselves. I, again, had problems just with the delivery and casting. So I could have watched all of that, because it would appear, if it's not all of the Australian episodes that are available, there's definitely a lot of them. I found like 7 playlists, each containing around, a bit more than 10 episodes each. So that's definitely the most preserved of the Zimmer Twins show versions. It's just a shame that's the version that survived. In addition, I thought I'd add, I actually found a Zimmer Twins television show episode that was recorded on a VCR tape, and it's just kind of surreal to imagine that. And of course, that would have been a lot more common when the show was airing. It's just odd to me that a show that was almost entirely done digitally and the stories were put together online, just being archived on a VHS tape. I just find that interesting. Now, to summarize, the show I honestly think was pretty good. I really wish I could see more of it. And technically I can through the Australian version, but I really don't want to, because as I've stated, I really don't care for that version. But from what I've seen, I'd honestly give it probably at least a 7 out of 10, I can't imagine that it was somehow like got any worse. I could only see it really probably getting better or staying the same, and either way, it was still clearly pretty good. I mean, they probably served more as bumpers than actual cartoons unless they just aired a handful of them at a time. While there may be information about how that worked, it's definitely would be hard to get my hands on, and I'm not terribly interested in finding out the specifics. I don't think that's really important. What's important is, I think it was a good show from what I saw. But before I move on, there was also the Golden Idol Awards, and what's neat about the Golden Idol Awards is it was pretty much fully animated, so it has a plot, but I'll just explain it without spoiling any of it. But basically the characters, they go on an adventure, and 13's hosting an awards show. And this was the finale of Zimmer Twins, and the awards show 13 was hosting is the Golden Idol Awards, where essentially I'm assuming the moderators picked what they decided was the best movies. Maybe there was a vote, I don't know. I don't think the details matter particularly, but it was a 20-minute TV special that featured their final selection of what I guess were considered to be some of the best movies ever made on the site at that time. It's also just really interesting to see the Zimmer Twins characters in a free animated format, because normally they're kind of stiff, you know, their actions are all meant to be predefined and generic so that you can tell whatever story you want with them. So it's just interesting to see something completely hand animated just for the purpose of telling a singular story. The starters are of course also like that, but they're very short, whereas the Golden Idol Awards, you know, you probably get at least 15 minutes of complete original animation. Now, I haven't seen the Golden Idol Awards in a while. I watched it a couple years ago for the first time, and I thought it was pretty decent. I didn't think it was amazing or anything, but I'm sure it's fine. But I'm really starting to run out of time to make this video, so I figured since I already saw it, I shouldn't really watch it again. I just remember liking it, so I'd say it's probably pretty decent. Definitely if you're in the demographic, I can't imagine you probably like having any problems with it or not liking it. So now I'm just going to move on to some of my favorite Zimmer Twins movies. Now, I don't remember that many specific movies that I used to watch back in the day, but I do remember some of my favorite creators. There was Ben99, Sunspot, also known as LPS Boy, Robot Guy, Fudger, Whatever, and Ice Skater. I also liked my brother Red's videos, but I don't know if any of that was biased or not. I honestly can't remember. Now, I did go through an archive about 13 of my favorite movies, so I might as well list a few now. Stuff like Is Candy Corn a Vegetable, Dust Wooden Nails, Eye Pants, and some of my more recent favorites are stuff like Star Doors, which was a Star Wars parody, The Warp Speed Wagon, The Zimmer Who Cried Wolf. I'm actually not sure when that one came out, but that is another one that I like. There's some others too, and I'm gonna upload my full archive of those 13 or so favorite movies, of course giving full credit. And if I find uploads by their actual creators, then I'll just put those in the playlist and not upload them. But there's definitely some other good ones in there. And something that I didn't initially like, but kind of grew to like later on visiting Zimmer Twins, is just stuff that didn't take anything seriously, that were just completely random. Almost in like a YouTube poop style. I just find that stuff a lot funnier than I used to. That stuff used to bug me on the site, but honestly, when I was going through the site recently, it was refreshing to run into stuff like that. But as far as the sort of rough history of site activity, pretty much people would just make movies. There would be popular creators, and said popular creators would eventually leave. Some of them would come back a few years later, some of them never returned. You know, new creators would rise up, but definitely in 2018 and 2019, it was a lot more dry than it usually was. It seemed like a lot of the old creators had left, and a lot of the people that were on at that time were pretty inexperienced. But really, the main thing I haven't talked about yet are some of the Zimmer Twins hacks. So basically, by putting /create/ in the right spot on the URL, you could actually edit movies, and I believe they fixed this, but originally you could use this to edit anyone's movie. So you could take a must-see, edit it, and now all of a sudden you'd be credited as creating it, and whatever you altered would be permanently changed. Now, I know you could use this trick on your own movies, because I did this without VIP to polish up a lot of what I had left on my page, as well as delete a lot of repetitive movies. So I know the method still worked, at least on your own movies, because normally you had to have VIP to edit your own movies. But I know this trick at least used to work on any movie. So what would happen is trolls would create like a dummy account, and then they'd go to popular movies and they'd edit them and fill them with profanity and inappropriate subject matter. And all of the users would freak out and call out whoever was doing it, and they would in turn hack the person that called them out. And the main reason they got away with this is the moderators were only on the weekends. So basically they could terrorize the site for about 6 to 5 days, so long as they timed it right before they'd get caught and banned, and the movies would be restored by the moderators, I'm assuming through backups. I do know of at least one thing that they implemented to help prevent stuff like this, and that is they implemented a profanity filter. So if it detected profanity, your video would remain private, but I believe there are at least 3 prevalent hackers on the site. Now there's one of them, and it's the only hacker that I actually witnessed while on the site. I think his name was Value256 or something like that, but there was also the pedo, who I actually didn't witness, but apparently the pedo was more prevalent than the Value person that I remember. But what's funny about when Value was terrorizing the site, I made a movie and like had Edgar say like, "We don't value Value256" or whatever his name was. And of course he immediately went and hacked all of my crowd pleasers and filled them with like profanity and stuff, and I was like really upset about it. But yeah, they were all restored in like a week, so it wound up not mattering in the long run. Something that was kind of a carryover from that was I don't believe the comments were archived. So whenever the movies got hacked and Zimmer Twins first saw them, not knowing that they were originally different videos, they deleted them. So when they were restored, they had no comments and no ratings. And to this day, there are some old must-sees and crowd pleasers, or at least there were when the site was up, that are marked as crowd pleasers, although they appear to have no ratings at all. And I'm pretty sure that that's just some leftover damage from some of the hacks that happened. As you can probably tell, hack might not have been the best way to describe it. It was basically a pretty vulnerable website at that point, and they did get it together enough that, to my knowledge, stuff like that never really happened again after Value. Finally, there's the extras page. Here you'd find some printable activity pages, facts about the characters, and most importantly, games. But I do want to briefly mention some of the other stuff on this page. Initially I kind of wrote it off, but it is interesting to be able to read about the different Zimmer Twins characters, find out facts about them that you wouldn't otherwise know. And on top of that, the activity pages actually look a lot more interesting than I initially thought. They're definitely something I think I would have enjoyed if I gave them a try back in the day. So back to the games. Now, I'm going to be rating all these games, but keep in mind, I'm rating these for what they are: simple time waster flash minigames. They won't be Game of the Year material, but these games definitely have their place. There were 5 flash games on the website, and not one of them were bad. Well, except for Escape from Skull Cave, so let's start with that one. In Escape from Skull Cave, you bounce an idol through a vertically scrolling maze. Traps shoot flames which damage the idol and fling it. Anytime the idol touches a wall, it wears it out more. If you drop it out of frame, it's immediately broken, and you only get 3 idols to pass each stage. A burning face will try to knock the idol from your grasp. Touching said face with your orb will cause it to shrink, making it harder to balance the idol on. If you survive 3 rounds of this, you win Escape from Skull Cave. The main reason I don't like this game is the 3rd stage gets kind of cheap in my opinion, and by the time you've failed there, you don't feel like sitting through 3 minutes just to get back to there and possibly fail again. As far as a score, I give Escape from Skull Cave a 5 out of 10. Next up is Psychic Stack. You control a wobbly plate with your arrow keys and stack objects onto it with a mouse. Zimmer circles will pop up and drain your energy until you click them. Star-shaped orbs will restore energy when you click on them. The goal is to balance the highest stack you can. Whenever you have all current items stacked, a new one will spawn in. I don't actually know if this game has an end. It could be endless for all I know, but I kind of doubt that. But since I'm not sure, I'm just gonna move on. I give Psychic Stack a score of 7 out of 10. There's also Psychic Stunt Wagon. I believe this is the only game where you can play as multiple characters, either Edgar or Eva. In this game, you ride downhill and avoid obstacles. You're timed so you won't make it if you make too many mistakes. There's also power-ups that either boost your speed and give you invulnerability or reverse time. Tires will crash you and take about 2 seconds to recover from. Cones slow you down for about a second, but you'll be invulnerable while you're stunned. So both of their properties can be strategically used for a slight advantage, but they still will cause you to take longer. Then there's the Zimmer Circle. If you hit this, one of a few negative things will happen. Either you'll be unable to move for a couple of seconds while time still passes, or you'll be teleported up into the sky and fall down, both of which take about an equal amount of time away from your round. Finally, there's 13. If you hit him, he'll invert your steering while he's on your head. In practice, this shouldn't be too difficult to counter. The problem is, there's no indication of when he's about to jump off, so oftentimes when it does happen, you'll be caught off guard and make a mistake. If you get through 3 rounds of that, you win. I think I'd give Psychic Stunt Wagon an 8 out of 10 overall. Next we have Flying Furball, which is fairly similar to Psychic Stunt Wagon, but instead of a time limit, there's a preset stage length as well as a health bar. Every time you hit an obstacle, you lose health. There also aren't any power-ups. Instead, you collect fish bones to regain lost health. This game has 3 rounds, and if you make it through all 3, you win. I think Flying Furball is pretty good, but ultimately I'd give it a 7 out of 10. The last, and I would argue best game, is Snack Attack. Snack Attack is a Halloween-themed game where trick-or-treaters swarm you, and you have to fend them off with candy. You do this either one piece at a time, or with a big bag to get several enemies if you have no other option. You have an infinite number of candies, but you have a limited number of bags. This number of bags goes up the higher your score gets, but you still can't just spam them. Once an enemy reaches you, it's game over. The different enemies have different enemy behaviors. One enemy charges fast, 2 zigzag, 1 has 2 hit points and accelerates when hit, and the rest go towards you in a slow straight line. The longer you last, the more enemies will appear on screen and the faster they'll be. This game has no end, so it just keeps going until you eventually lose. As for the reasons why I like this game more than the rest, I'm a sucker for cartoony Halloween visuals. And beyond that, this game I think offers the most tension. The mechanics feel more polished here than I think they do in most of the other games. And I'd say that the art in this game is just better. You actually have a sense of perspective, and there's tons of different enemies with different looks. The music's subtle, but I think it fits the mood perfectly. Out of all the games, I think this one is the most fun to actually accomplish the game's goal. And it feels a lot more replayable because you're not going through stages, you're just lasting as long as you can. Now with Snack Attack being my favorite, I think it's just about as close to ideal as you can get, and I'd give it a 9 out of 10. So, as far as what's happened to the Zimmer Twins community, they basically migrated to a handful of Discord servers and things like that. Aaron, known as MegaGamer1 on Zimmer Twins, runs a Discord server called Carl's Awesome Discord, and that Discord isn't exclusively for Zimmer Twins, but that is where I've seen most of the Zimmer Twins community activity going on recently. There's also Zimmer Twins Archival Project, which is run by the people who are running zimmertwins.co.uk, which is an archive of various Zimmer Twins things, including, of all things, I was shocked to find they have the Movie Maker there. But that server is more geared towards archiving. I don't know if that's necessarily by choice. I know there's a page where you can share movies, so I think they're open to you posting new content. Now, I'll try to put links to all this stuff in the description below so you can check it out. But if you use the Zimmer Twins Movie Maker, you're going to have to screen record because it won't save movies, but you can construct them. This also means that if you want to use a starter, you're going to have to download a recording of said starter and piece it together in editing. But the fact that you're not using the Movie Maker completely, you're going to rely on editing, does offer some things that you couldn't otherwise do. So you can make movies far longer by piecing together multiple pages worth of movies. You can also add sound. You can do whatever you want if you have the patience. I even remade the Never Gonna Give You Up music video using Zimmer Twins. But for the final part of this video, I asked people on Carl's awesome Discord server questions about their time using the site, so I'm going to go through the answers now. Now this part of the video wound up making up almost half the video, so what I did was I took a lot of the parts out, and I'll be uploading those to a separate video, and I'll link that in the description. I just didn't want this video to get too long. Now you'll probably notice not everybody answered all the questions, and when they didn't, I'll just skip said question that they didn't give an answer for. First we have EMR247. Her favorite starter is Joyride. Favorite game is Psychic Stunt Wagon. Favorite character is 13. What she enjoyed most about the site was making movies and friends. And what she's most sad about with the site going down is, quote, my childhood being gone. As for how she got involved with the site, essentially her mom found the site and asked her if she wanted to make an account, so she did. She then says, when I first made a movie, I got addicted fast. I was making movies every day and just having fun. I'd say my experience was great, and it grew when I got VIP and met all of you guys. She went on to say, I left CT because I ran out of ideas and lost interest in making movies. Not only that, but I felt like I wasn't popular like I was years ago, and felt like I was being left out on everything, referring to the Spotlight contest because nobody nominated her. It goes on to say, also, everyone I knew quit ZT, and it didn't feel the same anymore, so I left on February 13th and moved on to do other things. I just wish I didn't quit so early. I even had plans to return with a new account where no one knew who I was. Next we have Hannah, known as Hannah Banana 2 on Zimmer Twins. Her favorite starter was Zapped. Her favorite movie was Edgar Wins $100,000. Her favorite game is Flying Furball. Favorite character is Eva. Favorite creator is Whatever. Favorite part of the site was making movies. What she'll miss most about the site is all of her friends and favorite movies. And this is her story with the site. I found out about ZT through Cubo and decided to make an account. I had an amazing experience with the whole 7 years there. I left because I was getting bored and I felt I had to move on to bigger and better things. Next, we have Elite Pixel, which was known as Psychic 8 on Zimmer Twins. His favorite starter that was current was Foiled, and his favorite removed starter was Misfortune, which is his favorite starter overall. His favorite movie is Edgar Joins ISIS by Mega Gamer 1. Now, his answer here is part of an in-joke between us and the Zimmer Twins community. His favorite movies of his own are his Wanted Idol series. His favorite non-Zimmer Twins game is Persona 5, but his favorite Zimmer Twins game is Psychic Stack. His favorite character is Edgar, or the Alien. He also likes the design of the unreleased Waitress. His favorite part of the site used to be making movies, but now interaction with the community is his favorite part, and what he's most upset about with the site going down is all the movies being deleted, particularly the fact that most of them will be gone with no way of accessing them. I'll now read his story for how he started using the site. I discovered the site back in 2012 because I was really interested in movie making. I never made an account right away, but I did love using the movie maker. When I returned in 2016 and got VIP, I loved it. I met a few people and I joined this server the same year, referring to Carl's awesome Discord server, which probably has the most community activity for Zimmer Twins right now. He goes on to say, I didn't really leave, just took breaks. I was actually going to renew the day before VIP memberships were taken down. Then I saw they were taken down the next day and posted about it on the wiki. I knew it was bound to happen someday before the year ended, but I wish I never hesitated when buying it, so I could tell the current users that the site isn't at all easy to replace with some SWF storing thing. Sorry about that, LOL. As for how it impacted his life, he says, yeah, I think it kind of subconsciously taught me how to edit, because I was surprisingly familiar with Sony Vegas when I first used that. I mean, it's also the reason we're all here today, right? Most of us anyway. Again, referring to Carl's awesome Discord server. Next we have Aaron, the Carliest, gameriest one of us. Now real quick before we move on, I'd like to point out that Mega Gamer 1, as he was known on Zimmer Twins, actually had 24 must-sees, which is the highest number any single user had. His favorite starter is either Foiled or Gem Jest, and his favorite movie is the free video game. His favorite movie that he made is either The Valentine's Card, or Stand, the movie. His favorite game on the site is either Psychic Stack or Flying Furball. His favorite character is Edgar because of his versatility. What he enjoyed most about the site was people's positive comments and ratings on his videos. And what he's most sad about with the website going down is all the Zimmer Twins history that's lost. So I figured that I might as well answer my own questions, so that's what I'm gonna do now. My name is Peter, but I was known on Zimmer Twins as Pet. My favorite starter was Joyride. My favorite character is Edgar. Now, for my favorite user, I guess I've got 3 answers to that. As for who I had the most positive experience interacting with on the Zimmer Twins website, it would probably be Sunspot, aka LPS Boy. As far as the user who I think made the best movies, probably Whatever. But as for the user I'm probably most friendly with outside of Zimmer Twins, it's probably Mega Gamer 1. My favorite game was of course Snack Attack. My favorite movie was probably The Zimmer Who Cried Wolf by Little Kiwi. But my favorite movie that I made is probably Sitcom. Now, my favorite part of the site was making movies and then sifting through other people's movies and trying to find good ones, and basically just interacting with other users on the site. And I think ultimately what I'm most sad about with Zimmer Twins being gone is the fact that I think its legacy is only going to degrade from here. New generations aren't going to find it, and it's probably just going to become an increasingly fading memory in all of our minds. And of course, in addition to that, according to the moderators, there were over 1 million movies, and I guarantee you that most of those are lost. As for my story, I think I might have gone over this earlier in the video, so I'll keep it brief. Wallace and Gromit really got me into the idea of making animation, and from there I figured out how to make an animation on my computer using Paint and Windows Movie Maker, and I showed that to a family friend who was a teacher, and when she saw it, she recommended that I check out Zimmer Twins. So I officially joined Zimmer Twins sometime either in late 2009 or early 2010. I made probably close to 20 movies before I got VIP. Then I probably made about 15 movies with VIP. It expired, I came back a few years later, but I was basically gone from like 2015 to 2018. I came back in 2018 and 2019 and made a handful of movies and some new friends. One of the goals that I came back with was to finally get a must-see, because I actually never got one. Unfortunately, by this time, the moderators weren't very active and they only got increasingly inactive. If I had kept at it through 2018, it's possible I may have gotten a must-see. Unfortunately, though, that never happened. But I did at least reach one of my goals when I came back. I went from Dynamite Director status to Super Pro Producer status, which is the highest status you can get. I actually renewed sometime this May or June, but I was working at the time and I wound up not actually making any movies and my membership expired. And by the time I found out the site was shutting down, they wouldn't allow you to renew your membership anymore, so basically the last time I was really on the site was 2019. As for how Zimmer Twins impacted my life, it definitely made me a more resourceful storyteller. I think it also helped me emphasize my interest in storytelling, and the fact that it was such a level playing field really meant that you had to find that edge when you were making a movie, because everybody was working with the same stuff. It was only your writing and your structuring and your resourcefulness that allowed you to get ahead of the competition. And I think it honestly just helped me to be more creative in general. But that pretty much sums up the effect Zimmer Twins has had on my life outside of the site itself. Now, before we go, I'd like to talk about the send-off that the community had for the Zimmer Twins. The Carl's Awesome Discord server is where most of us are at right now. And on the day where Zimmer Twins was scheduled to go down, which it actually didn't go down until about 3 days later, we all joined in a call and just were talking about it. We played some games, and at some point we started making up ridiculous and inappropriate Zimmer Twins movie ideas, and we'd say that they were our favorite Zimmer Twins movie, and people started using Inspect Element on the website in order to make images of said hypothetical movies. And what we all expected to be a sad time just from that turned to be certainly one of my fondest Zimmer Twins related memories. I can't obviously speak for everyone, but I think that was probably the best send-off we could have had for the site. It was a way for us to all cope and have fun and just, get a good laugh out of it. Now, I will say that we would also alter the profile names. So profile names that you see are not always accurate, and obviously the movie titles are edited too. So basically that all works really well because these can remain anonymous, because we would go to each other's profiles and make it look like somebody made some really distasteful movie. So the reason that I'm clarifying that is basically if you see a name under one of those, that doesn't mean that's the person that made that edit. And unless you were there, you really have no way of knowing who made what. But I'll go ahead and play a clip that Hannah Banana made where she basically compiled all these images that we made. Now I did decide to censor some of them because some of them are pretty inappropriate, and I just try to keep things pretty family friendly on this channel. Also, on the off chance that the creator of Zimmer Twins might see this, I would like to keep it a little bit respectful. So this is the clip. This is really the last united effort, the last activity from the Zimmer Twins